Hey, Dave.
Hello.
Oh, let me pause record. Okay. So it looks like we have about 5 people here already. We're expecting some more to join us. So welcome, everyone. This is session 12 of the Newtown Democratic Town Committee's Campaign Training School. And the topic is direct mail and integrated marketing in political campaigns. My name's Kara Riley. I'm a member of the DTC. And our presenter this evening is Dave Stowe. And Dave is the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for Alpha Graphics Stamford and brings over 2 decades of experience to the table. Dave has been at the cornerstone of Alpha Graphics work within the political arena and has decades of experience developing and implementing political print, direct mail, and graphics projects. And his experience has positioned Dave and the Stamford Alpha Graphics as invaluable assets to numerous campaigns. So this is a very interesting topic, and I hope you enjoy it. Dave is going to present, and I think what we'll do is if you have a question, if you raise your hand, I can allow you to talk if you want to do that, or you can just type a question in the chat box, and we'll take it from there. So with that, I will turn the floor over to Dave.
Okay, thank you, Kara, and welcome everybody. Hope that everybody finds this session to be informational and helpful. As Kara said, I've got a lot of experience dealing with political mail, and there is a lot to know. Basically, we're going to break this presentation down into 2 sections. One is a general overview of direct mail itself, and then the second part is we'll go over some digital tools that integrate with mail and make it an even more impactful tool for campaigns. So direct mail is one of the most crucial and indispensable tools for any political campaign, and it's something that any campaign should have a good working knowledge of and understanding and how to leverage it. And there are so many variables to know. That's why we're doing this as a standalone presentation and not integrating it into another one that I did of collateral materials. So why would a campaign want to use direct mail? Well, from surveys done by the USPS and by other independent organizations, mail has been found to be considered one of the most credible sources for political outreach. Good direct mail pieces help to cut through noise, capture attention, and compel the recipient to action. In the case of political mail, the call to action is to vote for your candidate. Direct mail's effectiveness in campaign runs deep, and in the most credible form of potential political outreach, with 68% of survey responders ranking it as one of the most credible sources. It's a channel that voters trust more than any other. Mail is also considered a highly persuasive form of political outreach. In crowded fields, good marketing can have a big impact, and 55% of voters say that mail has helped them decide how to vote. And then nearly half of voters find mail had an impact on their voting decision, and that even involves millennials. The information in your direct mailing goes a long way. 86% of voters check their mailboxes at least 5 times a week, and 79% of heads of households sort their mail at their first opportunity. Unlike something like a 30-second TV spot or a digital ad, mail lingers. It's placed on kitchen tables, desks, and countertops, and it's ready to be picked up and read again. And yes, this includes millennials. While they are more mobile than other older voters, they are also sufficiently anchored to an address, with 91% of them living at the same address that is on their voter registration on election day. 79% check their mailbox at least 5 times a week, and 66% do so daily, according to a USPS survey. Furthermore, the same survey found that for millennials, political mail is more important than email and equally important as online ads. And because we know that direct mail has a longer connection with the recipient's brain than digital advertisements do, we can start to see the impact of budgeting for direct mail and making that a major component of your campaign. So what do you need to know about direct mail? There's a number of things that need to be considered. First is the size classifications of mail. The next is the levels of delivery service, whether or not stamps should be involved and how to incorporate that, processing lists and how to use your mailing universe, how to choose a vendor, and having a mail plan. So we're going to go through all of these bullet points in detail now. So the first is dealing with mail piece sizes. This is an important component to understand. The names of the class of mail are not descriptive of the mail piece itself, but only describe their size. So there are three main size classes that are come under postcard, letter, and flat. A postcard does not describe everything that you might associate as a postcard, but rather simply a mail piece that is up to 4¼ inches on its small dimension and 6 inches on its larger dimension. Likewise, a letter size piece is not describing what you would normally associate with a letter, but simply stating that it's a mail piece that has its small dimension up to 6⅛ inches and its large dimension on 11½ inches. Many items that you would normally think of as a postcard and associate as a postcard fall into this letter size category, such as 5x7, 5½, 8½, 6x9, and 6x11 postcards. All are common card sizes that qualify as letters. The final size category is a flat, and that covers any mail piece with its short dimension exceeding 6⅛ or its long dimension exceeding 11½. There are also some exceptionally large mail pieces, but those are very rarely used and not something to really worry about. So the size of your mail piece impacts your project in two ways. The smaller the piece, the cheaper that it will cost to print. That said, until you get into some larger quantities, the differences in print costs are not usually significant. However, when considering size, you do want to make sure that you're leaving enough room for content to be able to be designed, seen, and read in a clear and cohesive manner. You don't want to scrunch something in just to fit it into a smaller piece. The second component that's important is that size determines the postage rate that you pay on each piece. Each size classification carries with it different postage rates, and depending on the size piece, there can be significant postage differences if you were comparing costs for a letter versus a flat. Postage generally also is the largest component of a mailing, unless we're talking about something more complicated where you have 5 or 6 pieces that are inserted into an envelope, that starts to get into a more complicated mail piece. But just know that the size of the piece impacts both your print costs and your postage costs. So the second thing to consider that's related to that is the delivery service level. So mail can go out as single pieces or small batches, and these would generally be done with stamps. However, that's not generally how political mail or any mail of any volume goes out. That goes out as bulk mail. So bulk mail requires a postal permit be printed on the mail piece. And that generally would be a permit needs to be held by the person that is, or the group, company, business that is sending out the mail. A campaign does not need a mail permit. Just the vendor you're working with needs to have a mail permit that you can mail on. Bulk mail pieces generally have the permanent information that's printed on the piece, and it's commonly known as an indicia, usually goes in the top right corner of the mail piece. So bulk mail has two main classes, and that is first class and standard. First class mail is a higher level of service, and on average will be received when mailed out anywhere in the country in 1 to 4 days. There is also a 500 piece minimum threshold to qualify for bulk mail for first class pieces. Standard mail is a lower level of service than first class, and on average, standard mail generally is received anywhere in the country in 3 to 14 days. Geography plays a very big role in the timing, as locations on the other side of the country can generally take up to 2 weeks. However, local delivery times are generally 3 to 5 days. Additionally, political bulk mail should be red tagged by the vendor that is sending it out. When mail is red tagged, the post office is supposed to expedite its processing, and standard mail is generally treated more like first class. Almost all the political mail that we process is mailed as standard mail, and we have excellent success with timely delivery, especially for local campaigns where the geography is very concentrated. In general, first class mail for political campaigns is unnecessary and a waste of budget unless it's a last minute piece that you are trying to guarantee a certain delivery date. Nonprofit mail is a discounted version of standard mail and is generally not available to political campaigns unless the state committees, which generally are nonprofit entities, lend its nonprofit status to campaigns, which does happen on certain occasions. 2 years ago for the municipal elections, the state committee did allow some of the local DTCs to use their nonprofit status, and that was able to save the campaigns a good bit of money on postage. Postage, not printing, has the largest impact on your direct mail budgets. Size of the mail piece and class of postage are what determine your postage costs. Postcard size pieces up to 4¼ by 6 get special discounted first class rates. However, postcard size pieces get the same rates for letter size on standard mail. Flat size pieces, which are the largest pieces, have higher postage rates than letter size pieces. Bulk mail does allow you to enjoy some significant discounts on postage. In looking at a standard mail piece, if you were going to take one piece and send it first class, then that would be 55 cents with a stamp. However, if you sent it first class bulk, you're coming in around 39 cents. And if you're sending it standard, you're coming in around 29 cents. This also doesn't take into consideration some special processing that we'll get into in a moment. So let's just look at stamps for a moment as well. Stamps generally are not used in political campaigns. However, on fundraising letters and other items where you need some personalization, they are a tool that's used, generally just not with postcards and large volume mailings. But in general, a stamp will cost 55 cents. But that is what is considered a live stamp. So any stamp you would pick up at a post office and stick on a letter and send out, that's a live stamp. However, there are ways to use bulk mail and stamps in conjunction with each other. So if you look at the 3 images that you see on here, 2 of them are actually pre-canceled stamps that are used with bulk mail, and one of them is a live stamp. Most people would have no way of knowing any difference, and they would think that they were all live stamps. The reason some people like using live stamps or stamps of any kind is because when somebody receives that, they think it's more personalized. They think that it's more, well, I said it's more personalized, but what happens is for something that's more personalized, people tend to hold it in their hand an extra 2 to 5 seconds. And every second that you have somebody holding something in their hand is a greater opportunity for them to start reading it and become engaged with your mail piece. As an example, if we take a look at, say, a 2,000 piece mailing on letter sizes, if you were to use stamps, your postage cost would be, well, live stamps, your postage cost would come in at $1,100. But if you went with bulk standard mail, then your postage cost would max out about $580 and would save you almost 50% on the mailing. By using, if you use pre-canceled stamps and you want that personalized effect, it would cost a little more because the stamps themselves have a 2 to 3 cent value, but you're still saving a good bit on postage. The next thing we want to look at is list processing. This is where you can save a lot of money, especially on localized political races. So the way a list is processed has a big impact on postage costs as well as delivery times. Standard bulk processing will get the standard bulk mail discounts on postage, where that will have a letter size piece will come in around 29 cents, as I mentioned earlier, and a flat rate piece will come in somewhere around 39 cents. Also, as I mentioned earlier, red tagging political mail generally will expedite the process and get that standard mail treated more like first class. This also needs to be noted when you're red tagging something. That's why you need a vendor that knows what they're doing. When we do any kind of bulk mail, we have to run paperwork through the USPS system and submit that to the bulk entry unit when we go to process the mail. So when anyone is processing bulk mail and it's political mail, it has to be noted that it's red tagged on the paperwork. Otherwise, you do not get that specialized treatment. Also, most local post offices are the last point of contact for mail that is being delivered, and also the first point of contact for mail that is entering the mail stream. However, dropping bulk mail at the business mail unit of a local post office will result in the smallest discounts, while dropping at a major sorting facility will result in higher discounts. This is an important consideration when selecting a vendor because you want to know where they're dropping their mail and if they have this basic knowledge as well. There is also additional processing that can be done to significantly lower postage cost over standard bulk rates. This is very pertinent in political mail, where generally the mail is going to a very concentrated area in small geographic areas. Once mail reaches a certain level of concentration on a mail route, more discounts kick in. This type of processing is called walk sequence processing. While vendors do charge more for this type of processing is as because this type of processing is more labor intensive. That cost is generally extremely outweighed often by a good bit by the postage savings. As an example, let's look at that same 2,000 piece mailing we were talking about earlier. For a letter sized mailing, we were getting a discount initially with standard processing of about $580. But if we processed with walk sequence, that postage cost can get down to about $380. And when you're dealing with larger volume mailings, the savings are substantial. So the thing that's really important too is I remember about a year ago, I was dealing with a new campaign that had been previously working with a different vendor, and they had been very frustrated by the fact that their competitors were having flat size pieces mailed out almost at what they were paying for letter size pieces. And what was going on is the vendor that they had been working with did not do any walk sequence processing and was not even aware of that type of service. So once they started working with us, we were actually able to allow them to do an extra mailing because of this, simply because of the postage savings they realized because of the way we processed that particular mail piece. Another thing to look at when dealing with mailing is your list itself. So first, where do you get your lists from? There are like 5 main spots you can, well, four main places you can get your lists from. Either the Secretary of State's office is the one that deals with all voter data and then will generate the mailing lists. Also, the local town committees will generally have access to these lists as well. It's public information, so any campaign has access to this. The second would be a demographic list. So if you want to, for instance, in your campaign, you're looking to target specific demographics, maybe people that have children in the home or are at a certain, they have certain income levels, or maybe they have senior citizens in the home. All of this can be figured out by sourcing mail lists that actually have all these demographics. And then that allows you to really target very specifically with your mail pieces who you're reaching out to. Another way to generate a list would be simply for you to start putting together all of your contacts that you would have had initially, and maybe that you've collected from door knocking and other events, and you can generate a list that way. One other way to generate a list, it's actually mailing without a list, is called EDDM service. What that is, it's called EDDM is Every Door Direct Mail. That's a special program run by the post office that is based on saturation of a mail route. So if you mail to every person on a specific mail route, then you get extremely discounted postage rates. And they come down to about 18 or 19 cents per mail piece, which is pretty significant. That's almost what nonprofit rates are. There's 2 caveats with Every Door Direct Mail and using that is you have to saturate the mail route. So you have to hit every person on a mail route. Mail routes are generally not that big. Every zip code will generally have 10 to 20 mail routes within that. And then the second is that the mail piece needs to qualify as a flat. So what we generally do with that, with people that are trying to be really cost effective but want to use EDDM, is we'll do a postcard that is 6.5 by 9 inches, almost the same size as a flat, but we just exceed that minimum threshold of the 6 1/8 inches. And what that does, it allows you to maximize your postal discounts while at the same time also trying to be as conservative as you can with your print costs. And then the other thing to consider when you're dealing with lists is who do you want to mail to? So a lot of that is going to be determined by the message of the mail piece itself. So for instance, the first and last pieces that people mail out generally should go to your entire universe of candidates that you want to connect with. The first one would generally be an introductory mail piece, and the last one is usually a get out the vote mail piece. Pieces that you would put in the middle tend to speak more to specific issues or specific audiences. So maybe you do a mail piece that is dealing with education. So in that case, you're going to be targeting families that have children of school age. Or maybe you're doing a mail piece that is speaking specifically to senior issues with healthcare or Social Security or something like that. that universe you would want to pare down and know your audience's ages so that you can target them properly and not waste money on sending a message mail piece to somebody that it does not apply to. So the next thing, and this is probably the most important thing to consider when, especially when you don't have a lot of experience with direct mail, is choosing a vendor. So a good starting point for choosing a vendor would be to talk with experienced candidates, campaign managers, and people at your own local town committees. Ask them who they recommend and why. You definitely do not want to randomly reach out to just anyone, as all vendors most certainly are not created equal. And this is even more so when it comes to political mail. Things that you should consider is using a vendor who has all of their services under one roof. Maybe you know a printer who does not have in-house mailing services. Maybe you know a mail house who does not print in-house. Elections move fast and time is of the essence. Time is lost when dealing with multiple vendors when it comes to communication. You also lose time moving the printed piece from a printer to a mail house. Generally, unless quantities are very high, all political mailings are proofed, printed, and mailed out within 2 to 3 days. Additionally, anyone who does not have all these services under one roof is not going to have the overall expertise that you want to rely on. Should you use a union shop or not? That's a question that we get commonly. And while we can produce internally, we can produce both union and non-union projects, and we make more on union work. I always recommend that a campaign go with non-union unless the candidate is getting significant funding from union sources, or the union vote plays a major role in that particular election. Otherwise, save the money and get more done in your campaign. That's really a decision that is kind of going to be based on your local knowledge of your electorate, your town that you're running in. Also, some good questions to ask of any vendor that you're considering working with should include: what is your experience in working with political mail? Do you do all work in-house? What type of USPS mail facility do you drop bulk mail at? That's what we touched on earlier. While dropping at local mail facilities might seem like a great idea, one that limits your postal discounts, and it might actually that might also delay your time to delivery, even though that's a little counterintuitive. You also want to ask if they do walk sequence processing, if they can provide references of past political clients, and ask them if they red tag their mail. And then that is pretty much through the summary of general political mail in and of itself. And then we're going to get into the integrated services that we can layer onto political mail. I don't know, Kara, if you wanted to see if anyone had any questions specifically on anything we've covered so far before we get into the digital portion.
Yeah, sure. Does anyone have any questions? If you just raise your hand or just type your question in the chat. And in the meantime, I just want to mention, assuming that Dave, this presentation can we share this with the attendees?
Yeah. You mean
what you sent me? Yeah, what you sent me earlier.
Oh yeah. Feel free to.
I should have asked you that before. But
yep.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the chat comments, and I'm going to upload the presentation. It's a Google. It's Google, whatever Google they call it. But I'll load the document. I'll load it to the site, to the Google site. But what I'm sending here is the link, that Google Drive. That's the word I was looking for. Okay. I don't see anyone's hands raised. And I did that wrong. Hold on. I don't see any questions in the chat box.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we could take questions at the end too.
Yep.
So
okay. There we go.
I'll go into the part now with digital integration, working with mail. So recently, technology has allowed for multi-channel marketing, and a lot of mail houses have not really picked up on this yet. But we've been doing some digital integration for a little while now, and it's really a great way to enhance political mail. And also, if you don't have a lot of experience in digital channels, to get your message out across your digital channels. So we're going to talk about this. It's called Political Power Up. So just look at some statistics first. And especially this was true in the last election cycle, and it's going to be continue to be true, especially with all the early voting, absentee ballots. And I think that's a thing that's not going to be a fad. I think that's something that's here to stay. So let's look at 67% of voters read mail on early voting registration. 73% of Americans prefer first contact by mail when it comes to voting, and 55% of voters use mail to decide on how to vote. 6 out of 10 swing voters say that political mail is helpful in their decision. So clearly we're talking about something that is very impactful. And if we can do anything to enhance that, we really should. So that's what we're going to kind of discuss. The other thing to consider is millennials are becoming a more and more significant portion of the electorate. And at first blush, you might think that millennials are not receptive to mail, that they're all digital. That's not the case. In fact, 76% of millennial respondents indicated that they are very or somewhat likely to read their mail upon seeing it. And it's actually a figure that's higher than Gen Xers and baby boomers. Millennials make up 37% of the electorate this last cycle, which is a huge impact on the elections, and it will only continue to grow moving forward. What do young voters want? They were surveyed, and they said that they actually want a mix of channels when it comes to political advertising. 58% agreed that it was more factual than any other type of political advertising. So that's another really good component of direct mail, that it's a believable source as opposed to many of the other channels out there. And 73% said that it was very or somewhat easy to determine the source of the content. And that goes a long way to trust as well. The other thing is that decisions this last cycle, and they will continue to be, have been made really early. That's why it's a good idea to get a mail plan together and start reaching out to the electorate early on, and then integrating that with digital channels. So this is what we're going to talk about now. How do you offer something more than just mail and be able to reach more people? Basic tenet of marketing is that 80% of sales are made between the 8th and 12th contact. And with political mail and with politics in general, voting is the sale. So Political Power Up is an omni-channel marketing solution that's designed to seamlessly track effectiveness of your direct mail while enhancing the overall results through cross-channel promotion on digital platforms like Google, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and more. So basically, this service, what it is it takes a single touch direct mail piece, which is also already incredibly impactful, and transforms it into an omni-channel 30-day marketing campaign that generally would get you anywhere from 8 to 16 touches as opposed to the single touch of a mail piece. It's also important to note that it's not a replacement for current digital marketing strategies. You should still continue to do that. It's a mail-centric service, but one that integrates digital platforms and can be really, really helpful for smaller campaigns that don't have a lot of manpower to dedicate to their digital channels. So what this does is it integrates 9 technologies, which are social media match, mail tracking, informed delivery, call tracking, social media follow-up, district targeting, Gmail advertising, YouTube ads, and lead match. And we'll quickly go through each of those to give you an understanding of what they are and what they do. So digital access, 72% of people access the internet solely on their smartphones, while 98% of people access social media accounts from their mobile devices. And 78% of people access their social media only from their mobile devices. So the first component of this digital integration is Social Match. So Social Match matches your mail list to Facebook and Instagram user accounts, targets those, so your target market will not only receive the mail piece, but will also be delivered to the same message to their social media newsfeed before, during, and after the mail piece reaches. So what we do is we start sending out social media ads on the same day that the mailing is dropped. So people are being conditioned to be receptive to the visuals of your mail piece before they ever receive it. And the more familiar somebody is, I mean, it's basic brain chemistry. The more familiar somebody is and more comfortable they come with imagery, the more likely they are to be interacting with ultimately your mail piece when they receive it, because they're already familiar with that imagery. And also another benefit of this, not only does Social Match reach out to the matches that we can make on your mailing list, but it will also post these digital campaign ads to other demographics that share similar attributes to your audience. So you're actually generating a target audience that is larger than your mailing list. Another component of this is mail tracking. So, generally when you send out political mail, you send it out, you know it'll get received sometime, but you have no idea. And that's not great for planning. So what mail tracking does, it allows you to track, just like you track a package, now you have full visibility on when your mail is projected to reach mailboxes, and then you actually receive confirmation of when it's delivered. It removes all the guesswork from the mail process and triggers other marketing channels that you might want to be working on. So for instance, maybe you have a call to action on that mail piece. You'll know exactly when that is then received, and you can have your staff ready to receive calls. Or maybe you planned on making follow-up calls to follow up on the mail piece when that went out. Well, this allows you to really be on target for that and not waste any time, and there's no guesswork involved. Whoop. So another component of this is also call tracking. So a lot of times you might have a phone number on your mail piece that you want somebody to reach out about more information, or you have a call to action that you want them to reach out to you about. What we do is we generate a toll-free number that you can put on the mail piece, and it would automatically port over to your number. Then when somebody calls as the result of the mail piece, you get full view of the demographic information on your calls, and all the calls are recorded. So for instance, maybe your campaign staffer was not able to communicate all the information or forgot to add something in. You can get back in touch with that person and then give them that valuable information. You can also use it as a quality assurance to see how people are speaking to your voters, and then refine how you're communicating with voters based on how receptive they are to the messages they're receiving. Another component of this is social media follow-up. So once the mail piece is received, then the recipients and similar demographic universes are followed around with additional ads after that. Again, and then one other thing is any of the ads that are part of services like this are clickable ads that are directed then to any URL that you want to send them to. Generally, that would be the homepage of your website. The idea in any marketing today is to have all your marketing send everyone to one central hub, and generally in today's world, that's your web page. I mean your website. So you should always have web information on any marketing pieces that you're sending out. Now, the great part about some of these digital services also is that it's got district targeting. It's a geographical target of people that were within your voting district on both Google and social media. You can segment those audiences by identifying the highest probable voters. Targeting parameters include congressional district codes for any specific region, age, and gender. Again, the benefit of all these digital add-ons to a mail piece is that the people that are on your mail list are not the only ones that are seeing these ads. That people that have similar demographics to people on your mail list are also seeing these ads. So with a service like this, not only are you hitting the people on your list, but you're hitting other voters in your district that you weren't initially reaching out to, and hopefully that is raising the impact of your message and the likelihood that you will garner people's votes. Another component of this is Gmail campaign ads, which appear in the promotional tab in a Gmail user's inbox. Gmail is the single highest service that people belong to for their mails. I would think the majority of people have a Gmail-based mailbox, and so this is going to target a lot of people. And then once somebody clicks on the ad, the expanded ad looks just like a typical email with a subject line with engaging media and the option to forward the message, save the message, or interact with it. YouTube ads are also an important component of this. Display video ads right before or when your prospective voters will watch the newest video that they're watching on their favorite YouTube channel. It's a perfect way also to gather additional impressions and get your message across. Actually, the slide that actually did not show for some reason um, dealt with informed delivery. So for anyone that doesn't know what informed delivery is, that is a free service provided by the United States Post Service, and anybody can sign up for it. What it is you sign up for informed delivery, and then every day you get an email in the morning with an image of every mail piece that you're going to be receiving that day. The benefit of what we can do with informed delivery is that we can actually create digital color ads that would accompany the image of your mail piece that then are clickable, and that then would drive someone to either a landing page or your website or wherever you might want to drive them for more information. And again, this is also conditioning them to be more receptive to the mail piece when it arrives in their mailbox that day. Another and a really impactful and exciting component of this is what we call lead match. So it allows you to never again guess how effective your direct mail campaign was. Lead match enables you to track and record all website visitors that came as a result of your mailing and see what actions they took. And then so not only does it allow you to see anybody from your mail piece that visited your mail site as a result of that, it also allows you to see all unique visitors to your website. And then we can append that and get you contact information for all those potential voters. So this is a great tool for political campaigns, because generally, for instance, if you're running as a Democrat, your mailings for the most part are going to go to specifically a Democrat registered audience, maybe some independents. But as we know in today's world, political affiliation is a fluid thing, especially Republicans that are either going independent or even transferring over to Democrat side. So you can potentially have people that are registered Republicans, registered independents visiting your website, and you normally wouldn't know about it. And you'd have no way of interacting with them if you were only mailing to Democrats and you were only doing calls on Democrat call sheets. This would allow you to identify people who are clearly interested in whatever your candidate has to say, what your message is, and then be able to identify who those visitors are, reach out to them, and then connect with them, and hopefully potentially translate that into votes for your candidate. The great thing about these digital services also is it's all on one convenient dashboard that you can see. Every component that we've just discussed has a separate tab and then an individual page for that on there. So the map that you're looking at, all of the United States in the bottom right corner there, what that is showing informed delivery. Mail tracking is similar. So for a local campaign here, you'd have everything in one colored dot in the northeast there. You click on that and you can go down, and it gets as granular as every individual mail piece. You can see who received what on what day. For instance, with lead match, you can see who went to your website, exactly when they went there, how long they were on your website, what pages they visited, and how long they were on those pages. So it allows you to identify issues that are important to those independent voters, and then speak to them on a very personalized level. The more personalized you can get, the more likely someone is going to be receptive, and the more likely it is they're then going to vote for your candidate. And that pretty much covers everything. There was a lot of information that we just went through. So please feel free to ask any questions. All my contact information is here. I am happy to be a resource at any time. If anybody has any questions down the road, if you're just looking for some information, as you get into your campaigns, feel free to reach out. You do not have to be a client. I'm always happy to help people get going on the political bandwagon and have success in their campaigns. So Kara, I don't know, you can see if people have questions.
Yeah, so if anyone has questions, you could just take a moment. Again, you can either raise your hand or type a question in the chat box. And I'm going to put up the Newtown DTC's email address if anyone has any follow-up questions or wants any information from the DTC itself. And I also, hopefully I did that right that time. Yeah, and I also put that link for the Google Drive, and I uploaded Dave's presentation there. So feel free to grab that and have a look. So I don't see any questions. Oh, just comments, just thank yous. And I thank everyone for attending. This program has been a great success over the few years that we've done it. And I would love to thank Dave for presenting once again. He always does a spectacular job. And you have his information if you have any follow-up questions directly from him. And that's it. With that, I will stop the webinar, and have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.